I'm going to tell you about the ancestor that I came for. I called my mom to ask her if we had any ancestors that came with the Martin Handcart Company. And as we started looking, my mom got really excited because she had found a story that she had heard her whole life, but she didn't know who to connect it to. And it wasn't about the ancestor that came with the Martin Handcart Company. It's about a girl named Barbara. Barbara lived in Switzerland, and her family all joined the church, and they wanted to make the trek to Utah. She had a sweetheart named Alois Bauer, and Alois was planning on coming with her and her family, but shortly before they got ready to leave, a really good friend of his got kicked in the head by a pig, and it blinded him. And so Alois decided to stay and go with this friend and help him and his wife and their little girl. And so Barbara left with her family and came a little bit earlier. And their handcart, they came the same year, but they started in June instead of as late as the Martin Handcart Company. And their trek was fairly uneventful for them until about halfway through. And Barbara had a younger brother who was 12 years old. And being a teenager, and I think most of, I don't know, I can still relate to this, but especially teenagers, he got tired of getting up so early in the morning and having to go every single day and make the trek with everyone. So by the time lunchtime came, he was ready for a nap, and he did not want to go any further. So he convinced his parents to let him stay behind in the shade of a tree, and there weren't a lot of trees on the trail. So when they found one, he wanted to stay in the shade of a tree, have a nap, and he was going to catch up with them. Well, when they got into camp and started making dinner, her brother still had not arrived. And so they got a bunch of men together, and they went back to find him. And they never did. They don't know if he was taken by animals or if he was taken by Indians, but they never saw him again. And that really bothered Barbara for the rest of her life, always wondering what had happened to her little brother. When they finally arrived in the Salt Lake Valley, Barbara was very, very upset because crossing the prairie of Wyoming, there was so much wind, and it had really damaged her skin, and it took her several months before she felt comfortable with how she looked. Fortunately for her, when Alois got here, he still wanted to marry her. After what he had gone through, I'm sure her skin was not a problem for him at all. And they were married and moved to southern Utah. It was really fun for me to hear that story from my mom and how tender that was. It's an amazing theme, the heritage that we have been left by our ancestors. They went through things that we cannot comprehend. I think we have trials in our lives, and our trials are very, very difficult for us. And their trials were very, very difficult for them. And they're very different. But I think the most amazing thing about it all is the knowledge that we can do hard things. And I think more importantly than that Heavenly Father will help us do those hard things. And whatever comes into our lives, or whatever happens, all we have to do is ask Heavenly Father, and He will help us bear those burdens and those struggles and trials that we have.